start the recording. And I'm also going to attempt to share our presentation. Did I do it successfully?
We did.
I'm an elder millennial who can navigate technology. Yay for me. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much to everyone who's here this afternoon. I've been really excited about this opportunity, and so we're really glad this day is here. My name is Sarah Martinez. I'm the VP of Communication and Development with the Coalition for the Homeless, and this is our Bezos Day One Families Fund Funding Opportunities Conference. Before we jump in, starting with some introductions, I just wanted to do a couple of housekeeping items. We don't have the chat open today, but what we do have open is our Q&A. I think we just want to make sure that we don't miss anyone's questions. And so having a single place for that is ideal. So I know a couple of folks were introducing themselves in the Q&A. I think that's totally fine. We're so glad you're all here. But if you do have questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to drop them into the Q&A. We hope that we'll be able to answer most of your questions, but we'll take time at the end to make sure we capture questions and answer them either in the Q&A box or also at the end of the presentation. We are recording this webinar. It's not mandatory for you to attend this conference live. We love that you're here, but we will be recording it and posting it later today on the Coalition's YouTube, as well as on our website. And the link to view this recording will also be in the REI that we will send out and post later today. So we should have our bases all covered. With that, just a brief walkthrough of our agenda. Like I said, we'll start with introductions of your Coalition Day One team. We'll talk a little bit about who we are and what we do, as well as the Day One Families Fund and the Coalition's application and award. And then I think why most of you are here is to learn about the REI process, including program requirements, applicant requirements, and timeline. And then, like I said, we will carve out some time at the end today for the Q&A. So with that, we will introduce the Day One team. I think I already went. I think we are having problems. Maybe we're working on moving James over. So we'll skip James for now. Krista, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yes, my name is Krista Harvey. I'm the Director of Compliance here at the Coalition for the Homeless. I have the opportunity to work with this team a little bit on the planning for this really cool opportunity. And I'm sorry I'm really back to it. It's very dark outside and no windows behind me. So, but great to see so many people on the webinar.
Renee cannot be here. She is taking some well-deserved time off. And I think we do have James now. I was able to move James over. If you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. James Gonzalez. I'm the Director of Program Operations here at the Coalition.
Thank you, James.
Hi there, this is Sarah Holmes. I'm the Director of Grants and Procurement at the Coalition.
Hi, my name's Stephanie Cantella. I'm the Director of Strategic Planning over programs for the Coalition.
Hi, everyone. Cabrian Southern, Manager of Strategic Planning here at the Coalition.
All right, thank you. And I think Tony was not able to join today also. All right, so we will go ahead and hop into the presentation. So again, we are with the Coalition for the Homeless. I'm sure many of you know that, but for folks who may be new, the Coalition for the Homeless has more than 40 years of leadership experience addressing homelessness in the Houston region. Our mission is that we act as a catalyst, maximizing resources and uniting partners to move people experiencing homelessness into permanent housing with supportive services. And that's in service to a vision that everyone in our community has a safe place to call home. Again, more than 4 decades of leadership. We were founded in 1982. We have been the lead agency to the Way Home Continuum of Care, which is the local homeless response system, since 2012. In 2021, the coalition brought and activated more than $90 million in public funding and other public resources to our community to address homelessness. In a maybe more tangible way to visualize the work of the coalition is to think about air travel. So when you travel by air, we have airlines that we're all really familiar with, like United, Southwest, and Delta, who work directly with passengers to move them from point A to point B. But those airlines wouldn't be able to do their work as efficiently without the airport system. And so the same analogy really applies to how we all work to address homelessness in our community now, and how we've shifted the system. Our direct service partners are very much like the airlines, and they work most directly with people experiencing homelessness to move them from homelessness to housing. And the coalition does a lot of the behind the scenes work to make sure that we are moving as effectively and efficiently as possible, and that we have the resources to do the work. And I mentioned we are lead agency to the Way Home, which again is the collaborative model to prevent and end homelessness in Houston and Harris, Fort Bend, and Montgomery counties, Texas. The Way Home is comprised of more than 100 partners from all areas of the community. So think nonprofit, government agencies, public housing authorities, the VA, and even other nonprofit, faith group, et cetera, stakeholders. The shared vision of our homeless response system is a Houston region where homelessness is rare, brief, and non-recurring. And we believe that housing first and permanent housing with supportive services is the answer to homelessness. Really quickly, because we always love to talk about our shared results. Since 2011, we've housed more than 28,000 people in these permanent housing programs. So again, we love a good visual. That is more than the capacity of the Dynamo Stadium, which was PNC or BBVA, and now I think it's like the Shell Energy Stadium. I can't keep up. We have also achieved a 63% reduction in overall homelessness since 2011. In 2015, we became the first major metropolitan area to effectively end veteran homelessness. And while this doesn't mean that no veteran will ever experience homelessness again, it does mean that we have the resources to be able to house them very quickly, within 30 days, but usually a much shorter time. And another really exciting measure of our success is that the 28,000 folks who have been housed in permanent housing, they have a 90% success rate for at least 2 years, which means that folks are not re-entering our homeless response system, and they are staying on the path to long-term stability. Now I'll share a little bit about the Day One Families Fund. The Day One Families Fund was launched in 2018 by Amazon founder Jeff Bezos. The Families Fund issues annual leadership awards to organizations who are on the front lines, that are employing compassionate, needle-moving work to help families move from unsheltered homelessness in shelters into permanent housing with the services they need to achieve stability. Over the past 5 years, Day One has provided 170 grants totaling more than $520 million to organizations around the country working to combat homelessness and help families gain housing support and stability. Their vision is that no child sleeps outside. So a little bit about the coalition's application and award. The coalition was invited via a confidential application in September. We submitted that application in September 2022. I think it was my first confidential grant application, where we had a very, very small group. So even I think some of our board members did not even know that we had been invited to this opportunity. And so it was an interesting application, but I think it was a really fun challenge, and a really exciting challenge to think that we could bring these resources to our community. We really, in that application, focused on our community's track record of success. Our priority areas were around diversion and supportive services, including employment programs and the supportive services needed to make income and employment programs accessible and beneficial to families. We were awarded $5 million, and we announced that award publicly in November of 2022. The coalition, I think we were awarded what's called an umbrella grant. So that $5 million grant allocated about $500,000 to be used by the coalition, either to support our work in addressing family homelessness or to cover our expenses to administer this grant. And then the remaining 4.5 million is to be granted out to community partners over the next 5 years to help families in crisis. So now we will talk about the request for expressions of interest. And I think, Sarah, I hand it over to you now, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Good afternoon to everyone. Again, my name is Sarah Holmes. I'm the Director of Grants and Procurement here at the Coalition, and I'm very glad you could join us today. The process to learn about and apply for this really exciting funding starts here today with this conference. And again, we're recording this so that you can, and we'll share it with you online so that you can refer to it at your convenience if you choose to apply for this funding. Attendance, however, is not required. So if you didn't make it today, you're only hearing this as the video. We hope you'll still find this helpful in understanding the program and the whole application process, but you can still apply even if you didn't attend this session today live. The format of procurement for the partners we'll be funding is going to be an open request for expressions of interest, or REI. Now, your response to the REI at this stage will be primarily a brief narrative, a high-level budget for the program you're proposing, and some general data about your organization. We're going to touch details, all those details in just a moment as we go through the rest of the presentation. We will also be publishing, as Sarah mentioned, a full REI document that will be going out today, and that will contain all the content that we're covering at this conference, as well as all the details about the program and how to apply for the funding. So there will be all of this in writing for you as well. REI submissions that meet the threshold would then be reviewed and scored by Coalition staff, and the most inspiring of those proposals would then be invited to submit a full application. So we're beginning with a simple expression of your interest. If you're chosen, you would submit then a full application with all the details that you normally expect to see in a procurement process. After all those applications are scored, the selected partners would get a notice that the Coalition intends to award you. You'll receive that notice sometime during the third quarter of this year, and we expect the programs to get started around the end of this year. And this initial round of funding is expected to be for about a 1-year award term. So why are we doing this particular process of an REI? For those of you who've applied for subrecipient partner funding through the Coalition before, you may notice this is a little bit different than what we typically do for procuring partners and awarding public dollars. But these private dollars allow us a little more flexibility to be creative in the projects that we select and the partners that we choose to do those projects. And because we do have 5 years to spend the award, we have the time to be strategic and respond to the real needs in our system in ways that we might not be able to do with public funds. And Stephanie is going to walk us through some of those needs and what the Coalition has identified as the general programmatic focus for this funding. Stephanie?
Yeah, so I think this, at least for me, is the most exciting part. These funds are unrestricted. And so we wanted to look at our response to homelessness and find out what's missing, what can we not cover with the funds that we currently have. And so we came up with these 3 potential projects for you guys, and hopefully one of you out there is able to do at least one of these programs. So we'll start with diversion. And diversion is relatively new to our community. We started a diversion program in response to COVID. And so it's only been around for a couple of years here in our community, but it's been around for a long time across the nation. And so these are 3 things that are important to be in a diversion program. The first one is commitment. You know, the community has to commit to following diversion, having conversations, not just placing individuals into shelters. And since this grant is only towards families, a lot of times we know that in shelters, families get split up. So the women go to one shelter, the men go to another shelter, and the children sometimes stay with family that are willing to keep them. So we want to prevent that and prevent any trauma that can happen in a shelter. But you have to commit to that. The second thing is a conversation. And we like to tell people, especially with our new youth program, start talking at the very beginning about diversion. Like the first conversation should be a diversion conversation. And what that basically means is a problem-solving conversation with the client or with the person that's calling you and asking for assistance. These folks are in trauma. And a lot of times when you're in trauma or crises, you don't think clearly. And so they just need someone to talk to and think about, well, maybe I have a sister in Dallas that I can, if I had money, I could get over to her and stay with her for a while till I get on my feet. Those kind of conversations and assistance is the second thing. And then the last thing is creativity. And as I mentioned, these are non-restricted funds. So it is time for you to be creative. So all the things you wanted to do that you couldn't do before and that are needed to place families in stable housing, permanent housing, please think of that and add that into your expression of interest. The next program possibility that we talked about is an employment pathway program. I know that the United Way is doing something similar to this. I forget the name of the program, but I know that they're working with hospitals and they have different careers available in the hospital, not just nursing or not just nurse's aide, those types of things. They have a lot of different positions that they train for, and they place them in those jobs that are open, and there's a relationship there between the hospitals and the organization. So this is kind of similar. It's an employment pathway program. We want to be able to provide a earn as you learn kind of training for them. So while they're in training, we'd like for them to get paid. We'd also like them to end with some kind of certification that will allow them to have a living wage once they graduate from this program. And then the third thing is assisting them connecting to employment. So a lot of times we do have our clients in employment programs, but we're not sure what happens after that, and a lot of times too, they're only able to get minimum wage jobs. So this would be very specific on living wages and paying as they train. And then the next and last option is similar to the one I just talked about, but it's a little bit bigger. It's a social enterprise. It's a nonprofit business or program that works to employ those who have been marginalized from the mainstream job market and individuals from backgrounds that often face discrimination in hiring practice. So we know that people that are homeless have a difficult time and have more barriers getting into a job. And so if you have a social enterprise, then you hire the family, the clients, the mother, the father, the adult children or teen children to work in your business, and that way they can get on their feet. There's also wraparound programs that are involved in this, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The great thing about a social enterprise is that it is sustainable because the profits will be reinvested into the business or the training program. And then finally, it's important in a social enterprise that is focused on ending homelessness that you provide an inclusive workplace and supports beyond the workplace to meet the complex needs of employees. So this would be specifically for families experiencing homelessness. Next slide. All right, and this is my final slide. For all of these three programs, we do want to see wraparound services or supportive services, those services that are necessary to keep people in stable housing. And these are just some things that we've heard from you that are missing that we can't always pay for with our current funding. So we just created a list here. This is not an exhaustive list. Please, whatever you've seen, add it to your wish list. This is the time for those pie in the sky people, to put their creativity out there and their thought process on what kind of program they can add to our system. So again, some of those things are like childcare, transportation, legal expenses, rental arrears, deposits for rent and utilities, cost for a vehicle repair or a home repair. A lot of times that's what it takes to get people into housing. Startup cost for employment, uniforms, clothing, maybe a laptop or phone, life skills training, and mental and health supports. And again, this isn't exhaustive, just to kind of get your brain going. And now I think I hand it back off to Sarah Holmes. Yeah,
That's right. Okay, so now we've heard a little bit about what the coalition thinks we should be doing with this funding, some of the areas that you have identified and that we have seen that would be great for this kind of focus. Let's look at what goes in your application. So if you choose to respond to this REI, your application is going to ask some questions about you and about the project you're proposing. So some of the general information you expect a funding request to ask about are about your organization, a brief narrative with your background and an overview of your agency, your agency operating budget for the current fiscal year, your federal tax exemption letter, so we know that you are a 501c3, your signed partnership agreement with the Way Home COC, and be sure that you have updated that with us recently too. A list of your board of directors and your leadership, including some self-reported demographics, and then a copy of your audited financial statements from the most recently closed fiscal year. So those seem pretty standard. In terms of what you would propose for the project, all we're asking for is a narrative that would explain what your goals and objectives would be. You can follow the guidelines that are in the REI document and some of the examples Stephanie has walked us through of what kind of programs we would be looking for. You're going to give us a high-level budget. It does not have to, at this point, be detailed, but a general idea of what you think the funding is going to take to do what you're proposing, and then an org chart of who's going to be doing the work on the project. So that should sound very familiar to what you've been asked for before if you put in a funding request through us with the coalition. And the difference, of course, now is that you're going to submit this fairly simple application at this point, and then we'll review and invite those that we like the most, that we think have the most potential and meet some other criteria we're going to see in a moment, to submit a more full application. So you'll have additional time to submit a complete application with some of those details that you don't have to submit right away in this REI response. So what are we looking for, and what will get you closer to being awarded? We want your ideas that are well supported by your expertise and by the data you already have. The reason we're doing this REI format instead of a typical format, and we're doing this open to anybody who's interested and can do this work and make these connections and solve these needs in our system, is because we want to hear from you. We have a lot of macro data and information, but we always rely on your expertise, your practical experience working directly with the people and the challenges that you see. So a strong REI response would include a narrative and language that demonstrates your agency's expertise and your track record of success, your data to support the program. We also recommend you highlight your expertise and provide a snapshot of some of the previous and current projects that you might be doing with the Way Home COC that are like this, or that would tag on to what you're doing. And sustainability is going to be a key strategy for any of these programs and your agency itself. The fact that this day one gift is a large funding at one time, we are able to spend it over 5 years. It means that the coalition plans to implement these dollars strategically over the life of this grant. So we don't know at this time how much money would be granted during the funding, and we're not sure what will be granting going forward. So due to the one-time nature, we can't guarantee the future funding, but we're going to start with this 1 year of awards based on this process that you'd be submitting right now. So therefore, your best REI response is going to address a path that makes your program sustainable even after this 1 year of funding ends. Again, we may be able to grant additional funding throughout this 5-year period, but we're not going to guarantee that at this point. We're going to evaluate and be strategic as we go. We encourage you to employ all of your creative problem solving. The fact that these dollars are private means that we can be creative, we can be inclusive in the application, and we can also be innovative in how we activate these funds. So this is an opportunity for you, as Stephanie had said, think about all those times you've said to your coworkers, oh, I wish we could do this, but the funding from so-and-so doesn't let us do it. So now is the time to do that thing. Let's use these dollars in a way that helps all of our system and solves these problems that I know you're facing every day. And we want to hear about your community partnerships. Over the past decade, we know our COC has employed a lot of success in engaging partners from neighboring systems or issue areas and leveraging that expertise and supporting the work you're doing to address homelessness. So a strong REI response is probably going to reference your potential partnerships with other nonprofits, with mainstream services providers, and other entities who can help accelerate and enhance the impact of the program you're proposing. And at this stage of the process, again, we're looking for broad program goals and objectives. We recognize that we're not asking right now for a complete full application. So you may not have all of the information you need to deliver a detailed, complete set of outputs and outcomes for your program. But the strongest submissions are going to show at least some preliminary outputs and examples of potential areas that you would be able to observe your outcomes. So the timeline. What do we need to do and when? So we started today with this conference. It is being recorded. We will provide the link for you. By 5 p.m. today, we will be publishing on our website the complete REI document that provides everything we've talked about today. You have tomorrow is your starting point to start sending in any questions that you have. You'll email those to contracts@homelesshouston.org, and you have through 5 p.m. on April 19th to submit any questions that may come up as you go. We can provide the answers to the questions in a public format. We can drop those on our website as well, so everyone will have the benefit of things that others have already asked, and we can answer your questions that way. So by April 19th at 5 p.m., you have to answer questions, but your submission is due by May 5th, just before midnight. You have through all the way on May 5th to submit it. And again, it will be electronic. You'll send it to contracts@homelesshouston.org. Those documents will probably take the form of PDFs, preferably for budgets and things. We like Excel sheets that we can look at carefully as we review. And you know what your documents are in, the things that are about your agency. So we expect to notify the partners who are going to be moving to the next stage of the process by June 9th. We don't know how many applications we'll receive yet. So if we need to adjust that timeline, we'll let you know. If we need longer to review all your great ideas, because again, we're looking for the exciting things that you've really wanted to do and we want to hear about them. So we expect to give you a notice by June 9th if you would then be invited to submit the full application and be considered for the funding. So now it's time for letting you ask your questions. I think, Cabrian, have we been getting some in the chat as we go?
Yes. Sarah, do you want me to do them or you? You're muted.
One, it would help if I came off mute. Now that we did that, I think, Cabrian, if you will continue to monitor questions that are coming in to help us get our answers together, I will go ahead and recap a few of the questions that have been asked that we've answered. So one question that we got was, when will the REI be due? And is there a maximum award amount per organization? I think we covered the due date, but again, it's May 5th, 2023 by 11:59 p.m. So like Sarah said, you can burn the midnight oil just as long as it's in right before midnight. At this point in time, there's no maximum award amount that we've set per agency. We plan to be strategic with these dollars, but we also don't want to limit ourselves with an arbitrary number before we hear your good ideas. And so at this point, there is no maximum award amount set. Another question that we got was about diversion. And it was a multi-part question. So for diversion, the question was, for diversion, are we asking applicants to follow the existing model? I think we know that our diversion that we've implemented during the community COVID housing program has been successful. But I think, again, we don't want to be super prescriptive. And so if there is a piece of diversion that you would change, or again, if you're kind of like, man, like, I wish we could do this, but the way the resources are lined up, we can't. Or if there's something that's not really working well, and there's an improvement that you think can be made, we want to hear those good ideas at this point. As far as another question was, are you looking to cover a specific geographic area? For this award, we are asking that applicants and the clients they serve be located within the geographic area of our continuum of care, which is Houston and Harris, Fort Bend, and Montgomery counties. And I am looking at some of our other questions. We had a really good question from someone asking if health systems can apply. And I think our answer is yes, as long as they meet the submission requirements. And so I think you would just have to look at those and say, do you have a signed partnership agreement with the Way Home? Can you prove tax exempt status, et cetera? I think we addressed this in the FAQ section in our REI, which you will all get later. But it's also possible for a health system to submit a joint application with a nonprofit. So let's say the health system doesn't meet all the requirements, but they want to do their work in partnership with a nonprofit that does. That is okay. And also the health system would be, of course, limited to serving families with minor children who are experiencing homelessness. I think at this point, Cabrian, because I know we have lots of questions coming in, do you want to start after the health system question and read those, and then we can call on our fellow panelists to help answer some of the questions, because I think I caught us up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, and this one I just answered, but Stephanie and James, please feel free to pop off and say it verbally. But the question was, do clients for a employment pathway programs need to be currently homeless?
We are using the HUD requirements for homelessness, so categories 1, 2, and 4. So literally homeless, at risk of homelessness within 14 days, and then fleeing violence. They can also be in a current intervention. So if they're currently in rapid rehousing, currently in diversion, currently in PSH, it can be for them as well.
Thank you, Stephanie. Our next question is, are DV agencies eligible?
Yes.
I think that is a yes. We
Um,
love our partnerships with our DV providers. So yes, yes, yes.
Many are with us today. Thank you, guys. And then one attendee would just like to clarify, this assistance is only for families with minor children.
Yes, this, the vision for the Bezos Day One Families Fund is no child sleeps outside. And so these private dollars are meant to serve that population. I did ask a few clarifying questions. So one of the areas where there would be a little bit of I guess not like flexibility, but I think appreciating Day One and their understanding that, right, like it's not like things are magically fixed for children once they turn 18. When we think about, the need to partner with Child Protective Services, or maybe the thinking about our justice involved youth who might also be experiencing homelessness, there is room to be a little bit flexible in how we think about how we can support youth who are aging out of those systems, and so maybe no longer technically meet the category of minor children, but who probably very recently were and still need that assistance.
I'm going to type it in the chat so you guys can see it. Okay, our next question is, what will grant reporting look like? And are we able to create our own data points, or are there specific ones you're looking for?
That is another really great question. I believe in the REI, we will require monthly reporting from awarded agencies. There is not at this time a prescribed report. Likely once we kind of narrow down the intervention and work with partners who we award, we will kind of pinpoint those outputs and outcomes to drill down into what we will be looking for in a report. The coalition is required to report back to day one every June, beginning this June 2023, and then every June for the next 5 years. And so we will use that data to make sure we are having the intended impact that we set out to have when we applied for this funding. But is there anything else, Sarah Holmes, that you would add?
No, I think that's right. In our negotiation process, after we give you an award, we talk about what you're going to do, the details of how it's going to work. We will write together what your reporting expectations would be, but it would be something you submit monthly to us. It will likely include both financials and programmatic reporting of some type.
Great, thank you, team. The next question we have is there a specific demographic area you're looking to serve, and are there any exclusions?
I don't think there are any exclusions demographically, other than the fact that there should be at least one minor child in the household.
And are certified financial statements acceptable in lieu of audited financial statements if an agency did not meet the audit threshold for FY22?
Yes, we're not limiting any organizations of any particular size to participate in this program. If you've got a good idea, you can demonstrate that you can serve the clients. We can accept the certified financial statements in lieu of an audit statement.
Thank you, Sarah. For the social enterprise, if we have a resale store already as a social enterprise, is hiring for it eligible? And are only clients eligible for hiring? If so, would salaries for existing staff be eligible? Let me know if I need to re-say that again.
Yeah, I don't think I think there's a word missing because it doesn't quite make sense, but I think I know what they're asking. This is so new to us and I'm excited that you already have one. We want to know, what is it going to cost to incorporate this into our system? So you would be hiring a member of the family that's been considered homeless or about to be homeless. So you'd be hiring them. If these employees that you already have are doing something like training, over supervising, something like that, then that they could be paid with this funding. So it just kind of depends how you write this up and send it to us. Something to keep in mind that we are looking at sustainability. So we don't want to look at something that's just completely depending on this money and then after it ends don't have any plans. So the fact that you already have one up and running is a very good thing.
Stephanie, will you type that answer for us in the Q&A?
I was just gonna ask that. Thank you, Sarah.
Please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Our next question is, can budget include funds from project evaluation from a third-party evaluation?
I think we're open to that as part of your proposal. Again, these funds are not restricted. You would still have to demonstrate that you're serving the clients, that you're serving the clients that have a minor child. But other than that, I think you could include that as part of your proposal.
Thank you. Our next one was about reporting requirements. Please go ahead and view the Q&A. We've answered that previously, but just a quick recap. You can expect monthly reports, but the details of that reporting will be determined between the coalition and the awarded agency. For the employment pathway, what could the funds be used for, and could you provide examples?
I can give you a really loose example. you would need you would need to hire people to teach them the skills, right? So whoever's doing the job skills training, whoever's doing the interviewing training, soft skills training, those things should be included in an employment pathway. And then whoever, the cost of the certification, whatever that certification is, would come under that. And then we also want you to be able to pay the participants for their time while they're going through this program. So that's just some of the things, but again, it's unrestricted. We just we really want to know what you can do. We assume you're going to be working with someone like a college or a hospital or, some large employer. What can you do and what would you need the funds for?
I'm gonna ask that you type out your answers, Stephanie. They're so good. Thank you, Beth. What about homeless youth and minors on their own? So is this funding opportunity available to serve them?
Yes, yes. I have a question out to ask about parenting young adults. But again, like if they're parenting young adults, they have like clearly a minor child in the household. And homeless minors who are on their own, yes, would qualify as for service.
We have another social enterprise question. So we are a DV nonprofit provider, and we were looking to launch a retail space for employment training for survivors. Would that fit under the social enterprise category?
Yes, and social enterprise and the employment pathway program, those can be the same thing. So your social enterprise could be an employment pathway program. So I don't want you guys not to see those as individually and together. So yes, that could definitely fit into that scope. And I am excited that there's so many questions on this. I can't wait to read the expressions of interest.
Is there a target cost per person served?
Because we're keeping this so open to a wide variety of projects, there's no specific dollar amount we've written at this time. Again, that would be something we would discuss with you if your program is chosen, and we would see what's reasonable.
Perfect, thank you. How many awards are we anticipating to make?
We
Again,
don't know.
because we don't know. We don't have a specific number of partners or number of dollars in mind. We know we're limited by $4.5 million that we can grant to partners. We know that we have some ideas of what needs to be done, but you guys are going to tell us what the work is about, and the best and most sustainable and most doable ideas are going to get the awards.
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
That's okay. I just want to add, I think we will have I think this will not be the only time we do this. I'm having a hard time imagining that we'll deploy all $4.5 million this year. But outside of that, and maybe we will, if we get overwhelmed with like really great ideas and we think we can have the impact that we said we would in our application, that would be like amazing. But yeah, otherwise no ideas on that at this time.
Perfect. Our next question is, will there be a required match?
No, you will not have to match these funds, but these funds should be eligible as match for your other programs that are similar.
If awarded, how will the grant be funded?
We would determine that. We are considering some level of upfront funding. We're trying to work out what is the easiest to operate system. So that is a possibility. Again, we'll discuss, and it may depend on the nature of your program and how it's going to work and when.
Yeah, and we'd like you, if you think that you need upfront funds, if you can add that into your REI, just let us know, I'm going to need this much money and this is what I'm going to need it for upfront. So that'll just give us an idea of why someone would need that.
Are organizations allowed to submit an REI for more than one focus, or can you apply for all three?
Absolutely.
Are there any concerns about serving individuals who are undocumented with these funds?
No, I'll jump in and say no. Just these aren't public dollars. And so everyone else can like jump in if I'm getting looks from people who know these things better than I, but my instinct would say, since these are private dollars, we can be flexible with documentation requirements to a certain extent.
The next question relates back to REI. So I think team, I don't know if we have decided this preference yet, but I think this might be helpful. Would we prefer that organizations submit one REI for all of their projects or different REIs for their different projects? What is the preference?
I vote separate REIs.
I would agree.
Okay, so people who are interested in submitting for more than one of these categories, please submit a different REI for each one.
Obviously, a lot of your documentation about your agency would be duplicated in each, but your narrative and your proposed high-level budget and org chart would be different for your specific project.
If two organizations are working together on a project or program, could they apply together?
Yes.
Yes. We encourage the partnerships. Part of the negotiation would be, how do we deliver the funds? Who's responsible for the reporting? All those things could be determined as we work together.
And I think we would recommend to just kind of outlining the different role and responsibility within the partnership and between the partnership. And then likewise through the budget, kind of telling us how the funding would work if awarded. So would it be the coalition making like a joint award separately to each entity in the partnership, or is it there's like a non-financial partnership, right, which is a little bit, I guess, more straightforward. And so just thinking about how you use the narrative and the budget to really kind of give us information on how it would work.
Mm-hmm.
Our next question, James, which I think I didn't answer this, but I'm going to let our team answer. Will referrals be sent from the coordinated access system?
Yes.
Stephanie, winner, perfect. Is the $4.5 million per year, or is it spread over the 5-year period?
It is spread over the 5-year period. So the total award to the coalition was $5 million to be used over 5 years.
Will there be a limit of time that we can help clients? For example, only 1 month allowed or up to 3 months of rent, etc.?
There aren't any limits. It really just depends on what you have funding for. So you'll have to determine how many people you can serve, how long you can serve them, and make sure that you have the budget to do that through this funding. So there's nothing, we're not going to tell you you have to do this amount or that amount.
And that's all of the questions in the chat at this time. I think, Sarah, please correct me if I'm wrong, but we're going to take back the questions that we got today. We're going to add these to the FAQ list that we will help publish online and share with you guys. And you guys have until, Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, April 19th. That's what I was saying. May 9th, April.
Yes. And
Yeah.
5 p.m. on April 19th to submit any other questions that come up.
And then that will be published and updated online along with the rest of this information.
Yes. So the plan, since it looks like there aren't any other questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up, but just some quick housekeeping as we wrap up the conference. What we'll do now here at the Coalition is get this recording uploaded to our YouTube channel so that we can make that link available there. We will also put that link in the REI document along with the questions and answers that we received today, and then get that prepared. Cambrian is wonderful, and we'll make sure we get that posted on our website today, along with the conference recording link. And then I will email out the REI document and link to the conference to every person who registered to attend the conference today. And we'll also probably put out one more broadcast about the opportunity to our partner and funding email lists. But again, thank you everyone so much for attending today. We at the Coalition, as multiple people shared with you, have been really excited about this opportunity. And this is our idea of fun, getting to be a little creative and get some really exciting feedback from you. So ask those questions, submit those creative ideas, and we're really excited to see what comes in. Stay dry and safe out there and have a good rest of your afternoon. Thank you.